Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, I want you to do something for me right now. I want you to imagine a world completely stripped of modern technology. Seriously, try to put yourself in this mindset for just a second. Picture growing up with absolutely zero smartphones in your pocket. None. No endless scrolling to pass the time, no little red notification badges, and definitely no group chats constantly buzzing for your attention.
Imagine having no internet. Think about that. No way to instantly look up the answer to whatever random question pops into your head, and no Wi-Fi magically connecting you to the rest of the globe at the speed of light.
No Google, no Wikipedia. You couldn't rely on a search engine for your homework, your research, or even just navigating across town. If you needed information, you literally had to go dust off a physical book or haul out a heavy paper encyclopedia. And get this, if you wanted entertainment, you actually had to wait for your favorite TV show to air on a specific day at a specific time. No streaming, no binge watching whatsoever. If you missed it, well, you just missed it. Now imagine starting your life right there, and then witnessing the arrival of personal computers, the internet, and artificial intelligence all within a single lifetime. Which brings us to Section 1. Welcome to the bridge, the analog to digital shift. So Generation X, born roughly between 1965 and 1980, they're widely known as the bridge generation. Why? Because they perfectly remember life before tech took over everything, yet they adapted to the digital age almost effortlessly. They serve as this essential, vital link between the massive baby boomer generation and millennials. They grew up in a world that literally doesn't exist anymore, but managed to adapt to a future nobody could have possibly predicted. It's like a giant puzzle they had to piece together on the fly. They navigated this absolutely massive technological leap. We're talking about going from looking up facts in books and dialing rotary landlines in the 70s, to clacking away on typewriters in the 80s, all the way to using smartphones in the 2000s and artificial intelligence today. Very few generations have ever lived through such a dramatic shift. And you know what? It gave them a completely distinct psychological identity. Moving right along to Section 2. The Latchkey Kid era, creating independence. To really understand how Gen X ticks, we have to talk about latchkey kids. During their childhood, it became super common for both parents to work outside the home. So what happened? Well, kids were frequently coming home from school to totally empty houses. They essentially had to learn how to prepare their own meals, entertain themselves, and fix their own problems, all while their parents were still at the office. This kind of forced daily self-management taught them a really early, really powerful lesson about self-reliance. It's summed up perfectly by this thought: if I want something done, I may need to do it myself. Honestly, this profound realization is absolutely crucial because it still heavily dictates how they handle their careers, their relationships, and just their daily lives today. You can see a direct cause and effect happening here. That childhood reality of empty houses and limited supervision directly forged their defining adult traits. Because they had to manage themselves so early on, Gen X adults are fiercely, fiercely independent. They trust themselves above all else, and they highly value their freedom. In the workplace, this usually translates to an intense, and I mean intense, dislike of micromanagement. Okay, let's jump to Section 3, Mastering the Digital Shift, Skepticism, and Adaptability. So, a generation's psychology is always deeply tied to the history they live through, right? For Gen X, growing up witnessing major political scandals, wild economic instability, and crazy fast cultural shifts, well, it organically wired them to be pretty cautious. When they saw big institutions falter, they developed a healthy dose of skepticism. They're always the ones asking, okay, so what's the catch? But when faced with those rapid technological leaps, they built incredible psychological flexibility. And handling economic bumps, that just turned them into distinctly self-reliant workers. Because rock-solid job security was basically never a guarantee during their formative years, their whole work ethic became hyper-focused on building their own competence. It's like their overarching mantra became, prepare yourself, because nobody else will. They aren't just blindly loyal to a corporation. No, they are driven by results, by independence, and by making absolutely sure they have the practical, tangible skills they need to survive. And you know what? That mindset totally extends into how they navigate our modern digital world today. Unlike younger social media native generations who grew up sharing their whole lives online and, really valuing high visibility, Gen X is fundamentally different. Because of their analog roots, they fiercely protect their privacy. For them, personal moments stay personal. Plus, they got lucky. Their past mistakes aren't permanently recorded on the internet. Overall, they just prefer genuine authenticity way more than constant digital visibility. That brings us to Section 4, the hidden emotional toll, the price of resilience. We have to talk about the flip side of all this toughness. Growing up in an era where talking about feelings wasn't exactly common, Gen X kids were mostly just expected to hide their struggles and, well, toughen up. But look at them today as parents. It's a stark contrast. Gen X parents are fascinatingly involved. They intentionally strive to provide the exact emotional support they felt they missed out on. It's a classic, beautiful psychological pattern, really, trying to give your own kids what you wish you had received. And speaking of family, today demographers actually call them the sandwich generation. And it's exactly what it sounds like. They are feeling immense pressure, basically sandwiched between heavy responsibilities coming from multiple directions at once. They're caring for their aging parents while simultaneously trying to support their own growing children. It's just a demanding, constant balancing act at work, at home, and with their extended families. So as much as we love to celebrate their incredible adaptability, we absolutely have to recognize the hidden challenges here. That fierce independence we talked about, it actually means they have a really hard time asking for help. Their protective skepticism can sometimes sort of bleed over into cynicism. Their hardened resilience often masks deep emotional suppression. And carrying all that high personal responsibility, especially as the sandwich generation, creates a massive, significant risk of burnout. Finally, let's wrap up with Section 5, Lessons from Gen X, Strengths for the Modern World. When you look at the big picture, Gen X possesses just a brilliant toolkit of psychological strengths. We're talking top-tier problem-solving skills and a wonderfully healthy, grounded balance between online and offline life. Because they witnessed all this technology arrive gradually, they totally appreciate the convenience, but they vividly remember life without it. Honestly, it's these exact traits that help them not just survive, but thrive during modern history's most transformative period. The ultimate lesson they have for the rest of us is pretty simple but profound. Surviving an unpredictable world requires continuous, flexible adjustment. It's not about stubborn resistance to change. When the whole world shifted underneath their feet, they didn't just dig their heels in. No, they adjusted. Their incredible journey, literally going from clunky typewriters all the way to AI, reminds us of a really important truth. True strength isn't about avoiding change. It's about learning how to grow right through it. They prove that success often comes from quiet consistency and patience, rather than just expecting instant gratification. Well, thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this deep dive into the bridge generation gave you a totally new appreciation for how their minds work. I want to leave you with one final, pretty provocative thought. Based on everything we've uncovered today, what psychological trait do you think defines Generation X the most? Is it that crazy adaptability, their fierce independence, or maybe their hardened resilience? Let that sink in for a bit and keep learning.